And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Yannis. This is our post-match show of Fulham's massive victory, 3-1 victory at Goodison Park on Saturday. Yannis and I are going to break this down in probably the next 45 minutes to an hour. It's good that we can actually talk about a victory, Yannis. We were just talking about off air that it's been a while since you've been on the show, so welcome back to the show.
Thank you, sir. And it's nice to get a win. I wasn't on. I've not been on since before the United game, and I've calmed down. It's taken me a few weeks to get there, but it was a good win yesterday. And who doesn't like a nice bit of toffee? I mean, really. I had to destroy some toffees yesterday, and it was a good win for us. And it was overdue. It was needed.
Absolutely, my friend. It certainly was needed. As always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. Yannis, if maybe you could just turn up your audio just a tad. We just want to hear just a little louder because we certainly have a lot for you to say. I know you have a lot to say about this. Before I get into getting your thoughts on the victory, I was thinking about this, and you would know Fulham's history much better than myself. Fulham did beat Everton at Goodison Park 2 seasons ago, but that was without fans. This is the first time that they've won with fans. I want to say, was it 1959? Something crazy like that. Do you know how long it's been since Fulham have won at Goodison Park with fans?
I think it's something like 16, 17 games before. Before. Everton... a bit of a bogey side, but certainly that's a bogey venue. That's one of those, oh, Lord, we're going up there, we're not going to get anything. Burnley are a little bit like that.
Right.
Goodison Park's a really nice stadium, and the fans are really close to the players, and they're rambunctious. They've got a bit of an edge about them because, the second team in Liverpool, and they're very, very passionate fans, and they're very demanding of their players, demanding of their club. So this must be a difficult time for them because the thought, if you look at their run-in, the thought of them going to the Championship is scaring the bejeevers out of the club. But having said that, you've seen what's happened with Burnley, bouncing back as quickly as they're going to do. It's not necessarily a bad thing when you get relegated. We're proof positive of that.
Absolutely, Yannis. Very good point for you to bring that up. But I was thinking the same thing. They're building this brand new stadium, and this is probably their worst nightmare that they might get relegated. We'll see how this all plays out for Everton. It's so close near the bottom, but listen, Fulham have been relegated. It's hard for me to have sympathy for other clubs since we've been through it, but I think that their situation is kind of unique because of the new stadium, the history. So there's a lot on the line for Everton, but this isn't about Everton. This is about Fulham. So let's just get your opening thoughts on this victory, my friend. I got to be honest with you. I was a little bit surprised, and we're going to talk about why I was surprised in a bit when we talk about what Marco decided to do, because I thought he was just going to do what he's done before. He did change things up. Give me your thoughts on the victory.
It was a good victory, and I think it was a clever victory because he needed to. The problem with putting Vinicius up front is that Vinicius' first touch hasn't been great. He's not been good at holding the ball. We know what Mitrovic can do. And whether you put Keane with Tarkowski or you put Tarkowski with Cody or Keane with Cody, they're a big but not very mobile central two. Now, Coleman was going to be injured, and you got, oh my good God, Mikalenko on the left.
Yep.
Not the quickest back four. So I had a feeling he might make a couple of changes. I wasn't sure what he was going to do, but play BDR in the false nine role. Something like that. Was Diop going to come back in? Was Tete going to come back in for Cedric? And I still don't know why he did that last week. Still scratching my head. But I saw the lineup. I thought, okay, this looks a little bit more expansive. James is going to provide some speed. Wilson's really got a chance to prove, what he's not been able to do this year. Tete's back in the lineup. It's got more pace. And when I saw their lineup, I thought, oh, you've got Mope up front. I mean, it's been a disaster for them with him up front. And I thought, we might get something out of this, except if Pickford has one of those days.
Right.
And he didn't. But, lineup was decent. I thought, well, let's go there and have a go. Let's go and have a go, and we did, and we played well, and it was fun to watch.
Okay, excellent. I'm just going to share some comments from the Fulham supporters as we get into this, and also from our friend Chris Goodwin, who's a Liverpool supporter, so he's enjoying this. Let's just say what it is. Chris shares a Premier League stadium for the championship. I love that. Thank you, Chris, for sharing that. This is from Carl Tanner. Our bench players came up big this match. We'll talk about that. You are 100% right there, Carl. This is from our friend Colm. He went with pace, and that was the deciding factor, as was Leno's save against Montpellier. Great points from Colm there. Our friend Wayne Walden. Hi, Russ and Yannis. Just like to say that every Fulham player yesterday gave it 100%. Totally agree, Wayne. Totally agree. And that's what we're going to focus on in this show. We're going to focus on what Fulham did. So, Yannis, before we talk about the starting 11, obviously we will go deeper into the decisions made. But here's the thing, and we already talked a little bit about this. You mentioned this with BDR playing a false nine role. They tried that before. I want to say that was against Brighton, correct? Where he tried it against Brighton. Didn't really come off. It didn't really work. I want to say he pretty much did it again, this time with Dan James. So did his plan B, did he find Marco his plan B? Do you think this could potentially work moving forward? Is this an alternative when you don't have Mitro in there and Vinicius really can't replicate what Mitro does? You have to change things up. Is this the plan B?
It could be, and it would have been plan C had Vinicius actually done his job. You'd have said, okay, well, Vinicius could be a natural front target, but it hasn't worked. So what he did yesterday was the plan C, and now plan C's become plan B because we went at them with pace. It was good to see. This is one of the things about Kenny Tete that people really take for granted. When he goes on those marauding runs, he's the decoy. And for someone like Wilson, when you've got that decoy, you're inevitably going to drag defenders across if he cuts into his left. And that's where Mikolenko had all sorts of trouble. Tete was playing these blindsided runs and nobody knew what was going on. That's what led to the shot that led to the goal.
Right.
The goal by Harrison Reed. And it was good to see. I don't know if I think if one thing it shows that we do need more depth. It's going to be an important summer for Marco and the boys in terms of how we upgrade. But it was encouraging. There were encouraging signs against a team. I thought Everton took us lightly yesterday. I think playing 4-5-1 at home in a game that's winnable sends a really poor message that, we're going to try and keep it tight. Fulham struggling 5 games on the bomb and not, playing in and out. And you play Mope up front, and that's the best you can do. It was disappointing to see that, I'd say, from a neutral perspective, because it sent the intent that we don't know necessarily whether we can go 4-5-1 and maybe we'll knock them over, and it didn't work. They were never at the races yesterday.
They weren't, Yannis, but I do want to mention, because I think it's significant to talk about, after Fulham scored their goal, Sean Dyche did change things up, and he moved the pieces of the puzzle around, and that, I think, led to their little spell in the first half, their goal from Dwight McNeil. But overall, Fulham had the answers. And I want to ask you about this. I was speaking to a friend offline, and obviously there's focus on the fact that Marco's not on the touchline. So I'm going to just bring this up. Is it possible? And I've been giving this some serious thought. I know I follow and you follow the NFL. And when you have coaches up in the box and they can see more things, they can see the field better. Is it possible, because Marco's not on the touchline, that maybe he got a little bit of an edge? He saw something different, that maybe we saw a little change at halftime. I'm curious your thoughts on this. I don't see much talk about the vantage point of, say, when a manager goes off and he's still able to watch the match, but he's higher up and he can see more of the pitch. Maybe he can see more patterns. Is this something that potentially was an unexpected advantage for Fulham here? I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Well, Dyche made really good adjustments in the middle of the first half when he flipped, Iwobi to come in the middle and put McNeil out wide on the right. That worked well. What you're alluding to is the rugby direction. This is what rugby does. With the NFL, you got coordinators often up in the booth, but in rugby you don't see invariably at high level. You don't see them downstairs. They're up in their the little booth or slot, and I think it gives a different vantage point. It's like being dropped. You're a player and you're not playing well, and you get dropped, and suddenly from the sideline you see a different angle. You see different little things. And he had Lemonakis up there in the stands with him yesterday, and obviously seen something. And as he said afterwards in the post, he said, "Well, I can go in the change room. I did the pre, It's just I can't be on the bench." And I think it's a lot more. It's less stress-inducing because you can look at the game from more of a macro level than micro, and I think that helped him. At halftime, he's probably gone in and said, "Look, they've got the goal. They've got a bit of momentum. First 10, 15, they're going to throw everything kitchen sink. Just stick to what you've got because we're giving them real trouble, especially with pace. And they're going to make mistakes because that back four are a mistake away, every 5 seconds. They've got Pickford. Without Pickford, they're in worse trouble. And that's what he's told them, stick to the process. And then, he's made the adjustments, and second half we've scored 2 really, really fine goals, and it was great to see. And it's our 6th win in the Premier League away from home this year, which is fantastic. Wonderful.
That is crazy. I want to say, I think I saw a report. Maybe you can confirm or deny this. That is the most wins they've had in the Premier League on the road. Yannis, I heard something like that. Is that true?
6, yes, it is 6, and none of them. I mean. I think the best one might have been, Brighton away was excellent. Palace away was a thumping. Leeds United, Forest, Everton. I'm just trying to think who the other one is.
Leicester City?
Leicester City, yes. These are not easy places to play.
No.
Which is good. I think with the unfortunate thing about what happened yesterday is that Dan James can't play against Leeds next week.
I was going to ask you about that. We're going to talk about that later in the show, my friend, because as our friend Combs said this, it's something that we're going to have to look at when we face Leeds. Does he go with this? Does he move the pieces of the puzzle around? Maybe he plays Harry Wilson in that role, BDR in that role, moves players around, because I would like to see this again. I think you can use this formation again, but it is going to be a loss. Combs says we have to remember that there will be no Dan James against Leeds United.
Yep.
And that is going to be a factor in what ultimately Marco does. Does he revert back and go back to Vinicius, or does he go with what happened here and just move the pieces around? Yannis, it's actually a very interesting side note to this match.
I would take. I would actually. I'd keep it as it is now. Vinicius. Interestingly enough, I thought when we came on for the couple of minutes there, I think there was one ball that was played to his feet, and he held the ball up very well.
He did.
And I think that's really, really important. You, as fans and as coaches, you need to know that what's been done on the training ground, you're learning from. And I think we've all been crying out with the fact he's very quick to lay the ball off first time. But more often than not, it's not working. You need somebody who's going to hold the ball up and is going to drag defenders and allow midfielders to push. And I think that's one of the biggest differences between he and Mitro. So if that's not going to work, you really don't have a target man. So therefore, you've got to change the style. And we do have the pace and we do have the skill to play it around. If BDR plays in the false 9 next week,
right,
I'm more than happy with that. And then James could come in for the game up at Villa Park, which we now know is going to be very, very difficult because they're playing absolutely brilliantly right now. But they're going to want to get us back because what was it, 3-0 earlier? It was Stevie G's last game. Fulham Munchkin. But they're playing brilliantly. But give them something different to look at. And I think the shackles should be off now. 42 points.
Yep.
Don't worry about anyone else. Just go out and play. And yesterday I thought, as we grew into the game in the second half, we looked like a team that was free. We looked like we were enjoying our football, and Everton huffed and puffed, but they really didn't create anything, even after the second goal.
No, very good. I'm going to share this comment from Chris Mullins because we're going to be talking about the starting 11 in just a second. But while we're focusing on Dan James, we might as well talk about this. Chris shares, Wilson and James have definitely provided they deserve to be starting. Completely different attacking force from the last 2 games. I would totally agree with this. It's not just about 1 point. We'll talk about man of the match. It's going to be difficult for me because you have a few candidates. These 2, I think, changed the game, Giannis. I think they were pivotal in this victory, and they offered something different that Fulham haven't had in attacking lately.
Yeah, and let's not forget that Wayne has just put something about Solomon as a striking against Leeds. Let's not forget Solomon.
Yep.
Because William has been absolutely superb. You put Wilson out wide on the right, but that means something has to give, and that means Solomon, and that's tough on him because I don't think he's done anything particularly wrong. He's been the victim of the fact that Vinicius couldn't do the job.
Right.
And that's, it has a domino effect. It is a shame, but there's some options there. And, Leeds is a game we should really look forward to because they are in a little bit of trouble. They've got to play, they're playing United tomorrow? Liverpool tomorrow.
They're playing Liverpool tomorrow.
And then they got to play us. And the bottom of the table is looking very fruity right now because Forest and Leeds have been dragged right back in. Leicester are in real trouble. Right. And Southampton are doomed. So it's a big game for them. They'll feel they can get something down at the Cottage. And we should just go out and play and have some fun.
Totally agree. I'm calling this the revenge of Jesse Marsh if Leeds United get relegated. So I have also personally, because an American coach, I wanted to see American coach do well. And I thought he was unfairly sacked. That's just my feelings on it because that's just how I feel. So I actually do want Leeds United to get relegated, partially because of that. That really angered me, and I'm not a big fan of their supporters. Yannis, I think you'll second me on you wouldn't have any, you wouldn't lose any sleep if Leeds United got relegated.
No, though wouldn't it be funny if Leeds got relegated and Millwall came up? because you could imagine. I mean, it's funny because if Leeds stayed up and West Ham stayed up and Millwall came up, you got 3 of the biggest hooligan forces right there. Those games would be worth yeah.
Wow.
Because that would but there you go. I mean, it's interesting. It finally gives us an option. So we looked a little rudderless because I think we were in a period of grief, and then we went into a period of mourning after the United stuff. I think we just and let's not forget. I know it happened this week. But we needed that win because of the furor around the ticketing prices, which I'm still, I don't know what to,
Yannis, I know it's a different show. Obviously, we already talked about, but feel free to share your thoughts on it. I know we're talking about this match, but you haven't had a chance to really share your views on it, so feel free to.
Well, when I was growing up and going with the old man of Fulham games, one of the things about it is that you saw, mums and dads and grandfathers and grandmums, and it was always a family atmosphere. It was always a wonderful ground to go to and lots of fun. I don't know how in hell the owners could believe or even think or contemplate that charging £3,000 for a season ticket is even remotely acceptable or accessible. One of the things I thought was telling was the open letter from the Fulham Lilies. That came out, I think it was on Thursday.
Yep.
Which said that you're also pricing girls out and you're pricing women out. And this is, at the end of the day, this is still entertainment. And because the economic conditions in the UK are not great, you want to get as much bang for your buck as you can. There are 12 London clubs. And you could quite easily say, well, I'm not going to obviously go to that lot down the road, and I won't go to the ha-has. But you've got lower league teams as well, and you've got non-league teams that are very, very good too. And they'll charge you a quarter of the price, and the food will be better, and the atmosphere will actually be better. And so what if you don't see Arsenal because you're going to lose to them? So I think it's a poor move. I'm hoping that Khans take a really good look, because as much as I respect the amount of money that they've spent, don't take the proverbial out of your fans. The fans are the heart and soul of this club. And we buy the kits every year.
Yeah.
We buy all the souvenirs, boom, boom, boom. The programs, we watch the TV, we listen to the radio, we watch listen to Gentleman Jim, and we're diehards. And I think to raise the prices, flip fans all over the stadium is it's feeble and it's miserable. And frankly, it's Grinchish. And I hope that the Khans see sense and change the policy.
I hope so too, Yannis. And listen, you and I both follow NFL teams, and I'm just going to share this as well. I said this on the show that we recently did. If you think that the Khans, especially Shahid Khan, and again, he has poured a ton of money in the Fulham Football Club. Let's give him full credit for that.
Yes.
But I do want to mention this because there are people out there that's, well, he spent a lot of money, but you also have to remember, he might not be making much on Fulham Football Club, but Yannis, you will attest to this. He's making a killing off of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he does have the money. They do have the money. So let's just mention that. They do have the money. I don't want any excuses. If you want to give me FFP over the summer, there's probably a factor in there. But Fulham have the money to spend if they want to spend it. If they can, within FFP, spend it. Because I'm just saying that the owner does have money. He can spend it. He's already invested a lot of money in the Fulham Football Club. So for me, what this was, Yannis, and then we'll get back to talking about the match, it's about just treating it strictly as a business. I think what they're going to be doing, they're pricing out the average fan, and they're going to be looking for corporations to pick up the slack. That's just my opinion on that. I've seen it here. No? You don't think that's
I'm nodding in agreement, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to do.
Because I still think that that's where they're going, that someone's going to pay for it, and I think you're going to get corporate money coming in to Fulham, and the average fan is going to get squeezed out. That's what I think what's going on. What also angered me was an 18 to 20% rise in ticket pricing for the rest of the ground, and I think that's just way too high. Anyways, I've already said that. Let's move on. Let's focus on the match, but I definitely wanted to get your thoughts, and thank you for sharing that, Yannis. All right, let's now talk about the starting 11. I got to be honest with you, Yannis. I did not see this coming. I was pleasantly surprised. I wanted to see if this could potentially work. What were your thoughts when you saw the starting 11?
Same. I thought, I think, I don't know how much Marco and the coaches look at the social media postings and what have you. We may never know, but Fulham fans have been pretty critical. The winner against Chelsea can only buy you so much social capital, right? The fact is we lost Mitro for 8 games. Don't get me started. Utterly ridiculous, reprehensible. So who do you put in? Well, you do have Vinicius as the plan B, but let's be honest, it's not worked. So he's changed things up. I looked at it. I was miserable that Cedric came in for Tete last week. Please, somebody explain.
Still don't understand that.
I don't know. The Tosin thing, it's interesting the way he's worked with Tosin and Diop. But Tosin, I thought, was pretty good last week, and I thought he was excellent yesterday. And but then, what do I know? Next Saturday, it's an early kickoff. He may put Diop in, but that's fine. The rest of the team, well, you can't drop Willian. Wilson's natural to go on the right, and you need someone who's going to give them problems. And as I said, the combination of players are going to be playing at the back, in the middle. Then they're very good in the air, but they're not so good to ground. We know that's one of the reasons Everton have struggled. So I like the lineup, and I thought, okay, But then I looked at their lineup, and I thought, well, I've got no idea what is going on. I really didn't. No, it was. Godfrey's not particularly quick. Mikalenko's always got a mistake in him. I've spoken about the other two.
Right.
They didn't have Onana. That was a big deal. McNeil, to me, I know he scored a goal, but massively overrated. It won't be starting him on the right. It's miserable because he's a central player. Damari Gray will give you everything he's got, but Mope is one of the worst strikers in the league. He's awful. And people could talk about the save that Leno made, but how does he miss from 2.5 yards? And he had a 1v1 with him a few minutes later. He's a terrible striker. I don't even think he's not championship quality. Forget Premier League. He's a Brighton. He scored goals, but since he's gone to Everton, he's done nothing right, and he looks a yard short, and he's not a thinker either. So to stick him out there, I thought was a sign of desperation by Sean Dyche, and it gave me hope that we get something out of this game, and it turned out true.
Okay. All right. Yannis, before we break down this match, I just want to share my thoughts on the starting 11, and for Dan James to play up front, and I think this played itself out, and we'll focus on this as we break down both halves and the play of especially Dan James and Harry Wilson. Dan James, Giannis, with the pace, and I kept hearing this on the broadcast, just terrorized the center backs. It actually made sense to do this. It truly made sense for Marco to do this against the type of center backs that he was going up against, because they just could not handle him, Giannis.
No. And a lot of the criticism about Daniel James is that he's really all shadow, no substance. You know, he's a Welsh international. I always go back to Roy Keane used to say that anyone can play international soccer nowadays because there's so many poor teams and watered down teams and what have you. Dan James has never been criticised for lack of pace. The problem when he was at Leeds United is he was stuck all over the place. He was given a defined role this time. It was basically, you know what? You're going to go up front. You're going to give them absolute mayhem. Use what you do best. And I was delighted to see that he worked. I mean, I think the biggest indicator of his performance, did he last 90 minutes? Yes. Did he play 90 minutes? Yes, he did. And I thought that was excellent for him. I know there's an option at the end of the year. This is a sort of performance which, if he can supplement Villa on until Mitro comes back, will give food for thought. Is this someone maybe we can use as the plan B? Is this can Dan James stick around? And he was one of a number of players I thought were outstanding yesterday. And his goal was a little bit of luck when he cut off Keane's backside. But what a cracking finish! And Pickford, it takes a lot to beat Pickford. And I thought it was an excellent goal and one that he thoroughly deserved.
Okay. And what's good about this, Giannis, and I mentioned this in my 5 takeaways, especially these two players, picking them and playing them in the positions that they've played in plays to their strengths. I think that's the way things worked out. I want to go back because when you look at the starting 11, I think Jedi suffers, I hate to say it, when Willian doesn't play on the left. I think he is not the same player. Same thing. I'm glad that you mentioned Tete and Wilson working so well together. I think it's a partnership, and I think it allows players like Dan James, who's playing up front, to do what he has to do, and then Harry Wilson on the right, because he has someone like Tete behind him, play to his strengths. And I think Marco set his team up very well with the starting 11.
Yeah, I agree. And Jedi, I thought, had an excellent game yesterday.
He did.
And he and Willian are a really, really good combination. And it really is you really got to look at 5 combinations of 2 on the outfield. And if you look on the other side, with the Wilson-Tete partnership worked really, really well. And there's got to be some synergy there. Wilson last year, we were used to the cutbacks from the right-hand side in the Championship and the mayhem that he caused. But he's not quite looked the same since that injury. And he's not had as much playing time as he normally had. He's been playing for Wales, been starting every game, but he's not looked quite right. And depending on the injury, sometimes it takes a while, just to get back to where you were before if you get there. So I thought that this was a big game for Wilson, probably personally, and for the club, because it showed the ability he does have. And he had a weak shot in the first half that he should have done better with. But the chance to create the first goal was excellent. I mean, the cut back in, the decoy from Tete, Pickford's beaten all ends up and hits the post, comes back, and Harrison Reed did a good job, control it back of the net. But I think that you've got to rely on your full backs to do that. And that's why the Cedric decision last week was utterly miserable. I don't know why we got him. I really don't see the value in bringing in players in mid-season if you're not going to play them. Cedric hasn't bought, like Kazawa is going to go back, did nothing. Mbapu has done even less. I mean, it's not worked. So for me, it's been an odd signing, and I was delighted to see Tete back in because then that complements what Wilson can do on that side. And you're right about Willian. Willian is just such a great player. Such a great player. And thank God he's not the player he was at Arsenal, because I remember saying to you, he was terrible at Arsenal. It's almost as like he didn't want to be there. But we've got a rejuvenated player right now, and that's good for our club.
Okay, excellent. Coming up next in the second half of the show, Yannis and I are going to break down the match, talk about the goals, and we'll end with man of the match. Okay, my friend, let's get to it. Let's talk about the first half. We'll start with a little bit of analysis. In Fulham, again, started out really strong, Yannis. I thought they looked like the better side at the beginning of the first half. After Fulham's goal, it was told by, actually, when I was watching it, the commentators were talking about how Everton changed things up. Deitch changed his players around a little bit. And I think that changed things, led to the McNeil goal. And they were the better side for, I don't know, about 15, 20 minutes. And it a half ends 1-1. But honestly, Yannis, I think Fulham could have been up by more in the first half. I thought they were the better side overall, the better side in the first half. But let's start off by just talking about Fulham's first goal. Again, it was a great strike by Harry Wilson. And we kept seeing how Fulham were taking advantage of Everton. It all led up to this, but it eventually gets to Harrison Reed, and thankfully he gets the goal, my friend.
Yeah, it was an interesting goal to watch because it stemmed from what looked like a clearance, a clearance come pass from Tosin. He sort of hit it. He hit it full instep. So it's sort of, but it went along the ground. So I wasn't sure whether it was a clearance or pass. If it was a pass, it was brilliant because it found Harrison Reed. Then he's knocked it wide to Harry Wilson. And as soon as you see Tete make that run, you're thinking, okay, cut in. And he did. It was a beautiful curling shot. And it wasn't easy for Harrison Reed to bring it under control. And he just very calmly side-footed, slotted it in. And I think it's so funny because there's footage of Harry Wilson with his hands on his head after the balls hit the post. But Harrison Reed has scored a few goals for us this year, and this is one of the things Marco Silva was talking about. He wants more goals from his midfield. You have to be able to contribute, and Reed does that. Reed is the Energizer Bunny all over the park. It was against the run of play at that point, but I thought we looked in control. I think it was, but the only thing that worried me was a little bit like the first half against Bournemouth, where we absolutely battered them, and they never looked like they were in it. And then it took Tavernier getting a worldie to bring them back in the game. I thought they're going to get one of those if we're not careful. We've got to be vigilant here. We've got to learn from that game. But it was nice to get the lead. Our fans, and by the way, mention to our fans were absolutely fantastic yesterday.
Absolutely.
God in heaven. They were having a right old time there. And we went, and I thought, okay, so now they're going to have to try and, you got Mopé up front, for crying out loud. I mean, where are they going to get an equalizer from? But it was a good goal. It was a good team goal, and it would have given us a lot of confidence. And we've had a tough last few weeks, let's be honest. And we need, the players need some confidence. And it was a good goal to put us in the lead.
Okay, excellent stuff. All right, Yannis, back over to you. Let's now talk about the equalizer from Everton. And what's interesting about this is that actually it started off from Paulinho.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is not one of his better moments. And then it leads to the Dwight McNeil goal. So let's get your thoughts on this. Could the goalkeeper have done better? What are your thoughts about Fulham giving up this goal?
Well, Paulinho had 3 of those moments yesterday. And I think if they look at the game tape, I hope Coach Marco's going to say, don't try those driving runs. That's not what you're good at. He's big and strong, but he's losing it in the center of the park, and then you run into trouble. And that's what happened there. I was disappointed in the goal, if only because McNeil scored it. I can't stand him. And for some reason, he drifted into the middle. That's the sort of run I might have expected Iwobi to make, but not McNeil. And it's a nice goal. I mean, he's taken a few steps and he's slotted it in. But defensively speaking, it's a miserable goal. And really, it came out of nothing. And again, that's a coachable moment. Paulinho, look at him. Okay, did he have the option? Maybe he saw the gap, but he had 2 players converging with one as cover. Do you think you're going to beat 3 players? No, you're not. So that's just that's a moment where he's going to, he's been absolutely fantastic for us. But he had a few of those moments yesterday where he's got to rectify them, to look to lay the ball off if he can. Nice goal for Everton, and you're thinking, okay, is this going to be Bournemouth? But I didn't see anything to suggest they were going to create much else in the game. Whereas Bournemouth have, they've had a renaissance with, Billing and Solanke and Tavernier playing like world class players. Everton don't have that. Their fortes at home, they're terrible away, but they really don't create that much at home anyway. So I was disappointed in the goal, but I thought we had a chance of if we could get it to halftime. I still thought we could nick it in the second half.
Okay, excellent stuff. And to Everton's credit, they were pushing for that second. They could not get the second goal. So it goes in halftime, Giannis, 1-1. And we talked about this at the beginning of the show, but I want to focus a little bit about what might have been said at halftime, because we saw a different Fulham side in the second half. But when I look at this, let's mention this. Everton came out all guns blazing to begin the second half. We weathered a little bit of a storm. Then Fulham took complete control the rest of the game. The rest of the game, it was all Fulham. They had their moment out of the second half. I'm talking about Everton. But then it became all about Fulham, my friend. So what do you think Marco said at halftime? And then just give me your overall thoughts in the second half. We'll break down the goals coming up.
I think he probably said stick to the process. We looked good in parts. Our speed is causing them problems. We're playing well out wide. Don't do anything different. Don't get too cute. We're going to create chances. We've got lots of pace up front. Don't make mistakes. I think he probably would have gone in satisfied at 1-1, disappointed with the goal, but saying, we're playing well enough, and that's exactly how it worked. There's no need to panic. It just and from upstairs he'd have saying, look, what do this team really have? What do they have that can hurt us? And the answer is nothing. They're the table doesn't lie. They are where they are because they're not very good. And they're, I was disappointed we drew with them earlier this season at the Cottage. I thought we were a better side than them then, but they have nothing to frighten you with. Calvert-Lewin, if he played, would have caused problems because he's very good in the air. But that apart, now. So stick to the process. And I thought we did in the second half. We scored 2 very good goals. They didn't really create a lot. And the thing with Goodison Park is when things are going south, it's one of the quickest fan bases to get tetchy. And especially in the predicament they're in right now, when we scored the second, they were starting to get a little miserable and frustrated. And I still say that Sean Dyche looked at the fixture list for the rest of the season and went, oh, wow, this should be an easy 3 points. They've lost 5 on the spin. They, to me, approached it all wrong. They didn't fight for their lives like I've seen in previous games. They didn't. There wasn't the same hustle for me. And you can't take anyone lightly in this division. If you do, you get burnt. And that's what happened to them. So serves them right. And we were a better team in the second half. Okay.
So let's now focus on that second goal, Giannis, that gave Fulham the lead and obviously was the difference in the match. We'll talk about the third right afterwards, but let's talk about the second goal. This was what I would call a team goal. I think you're going to agree with me on this. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Harry Wilson gets the goal, but it had to do with many more players than just himself, but great strike by him. But let's just talk about the whole goal as a whole, I guess you could say, because it really was a team goal.
The Tete cross, delicious. The knockback by Willian, outrageous. And that's such intelligent play. He's known that seconds before he's knocked it back. And you could see, if you look at the picture, what was then the back five at Everton, they were all over the shop. And there was a lovely run by Harry Wilson. He steadied himself, and Pickford had no chance. It was a superb team goal. And again, for me, when you've not played in the lineup, confidence might be low, but what getting a goal can do is huge. And you could see Wilson had played well up to that point, but that goal just took him to another level, and it was great to see. And he's actually, I got to say, he's played pretty well for Wales, and so has Dan James. But then, and I'm going to be cynical here, probably because they're playing. Right. They're getting playing time. It can't be easy for them. The whole thing about that move, Tete was brilliant the whole year of the game, but that Willian knockback was just outrageous. It's just you can't buy quality like that. That was him from his Chelsea days, his
Right.
halcyon days there, where he was terrorizing defenses. It was calm. It was cool. He knew the runs were coming. Somebody was going to get on the end of it. And Wilson's finish was simple but sublime. And at that point, I thought it's game over. They're not coming back. Just because you could hear the boos, you could see people exiting, and you're thinking, well, this would be a really good 3 points. But if we can get a third one, even better. And it sets us up for the last 8 games. And I think just the calmness of the move, starting from the right, flip to the left, back, boom, was fun to watch. It was a really nice team goal.
Okay, so now let's focus on the third goal. And what's interesting about this, and again, they took it quickly. And if Everton's not ready, that's on Everton. Who cares? But they, again, started it quickly. Goes to Dan James, and this to me epitomized what Dan James was doing against those center backs because they could not handle him. And he scores a goal, and I think it's a well-deserved goal, Yannis, to make it 3-1.
Oh, is it ever? Is it ever? That's because when the ball's been knocked to Pickford's left, and you've got Tarkowski and Keane tracking, and so you saw as the ball in the air, the way that James was shaping to cut to the left, you saw that the first touch was going to come inside. But that's a very, very difficult thing to do. And as I said earlier, he had a little bit of luck. It's come off Keane's backside. But what I love about what James did is he hit it on the half. He didn't think. He just hit it. And, when I used to coach, I used to say that when you take shots, it's not the hardest shots. It's the speed of the execution of the shots. The ball that comes in the box where you hit it on the volley or the half volley, or the shot where the keeper can't get set or the defenders can't get into position, those are the killers. And that's what James did. No keeper would have stopped that. It was a brilliant, brilliant goal. And you could see the delight on Dan James's face. It's a relief for him, and it's great for the team. And I mean, if you're in a squad and you've got players that haven't played, you're happy because you play, but we're human, and you do feel as a teammate support and empathy for those who've not been able to play for whatever reasons.
Right.
When you see them contribute and score goals, it does feel great. It does. When you celebrate that goal, it does mean a little bit more. And I'm sure that, Mark and the coaches will be really, really pleased here. And I hope it gives our owners, as you said earlier, quite rightly, we've got, the owners have a lot of money and some big decisions to make this summer. And with 3 relegated teams going down, and we're going to be one of the vultures. We're going to be looking around for players we can pick up because most of these players are going to be on relegation clauses, which means that their contracts might be, the pay might drop by half. They don't want to play in the Championship again, away to who could it be? It might be Plymouth Argyle, or Ipswich Town.
Right.
They don't want to play those teams. So this is important in terms of making it more difficult to make decisions. And if it gives the club, a little bit of an issue, what do we do with Dan James? That's a good thing. And now he's on a proper audition. The Leeds game apart, we've got some interesting games coming up until Mitchell comes back.
That's right.
And he's going to, Wilson's safe for next year. But James is an intriguing one. And maybe they'll go, you know what? We've seen enough. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if he's worth keeping around. And I think because we know players we're going to lose, and that's fine. But we need to build off it. It's a very, very important summer for us. And these performances are really good in terms of evaluation because we're not deep enough. We're nowhere close.
No, Yannis. I think Fulham need a lot for next year. So I think you have to look at everything. And if Dan James continues to perform, you have to consider it. I can't believe we're saying that now, but if this is just him finally getting into gear and we're seeing the true player that he is, I want to say we saw it against Manchester United, a glimpse of it, but we saw it on full display against Everton, and it was good to see. So I would not be surprised if we see more performances like this from Dan James, and that would be good for Fulham Football Club. It's good for him. It's good for everyone overall if he performs well. So let's just say that.
Big time.
Okay, my friend, to end the show, let's go to man of the match. And if you're watching live, feel free to share your thoughts on who was man of the match. Yannis, there are several candidates here. So who was your man of the match?
Well, you're going to be delighted to know, and I know everybody's going to be delighted to know this, sorry, Floyd, not today, mate. I can't vote for you today. You were brilliant in your absence. Wow, there were so many players. I thought Harry Wilson was excellent. I thought Dan James was excellent. I really thought collectively our back four was excellent. I thought long and hard about this, but to me, it's going to go to Harrison Reed. One of the things that Marco Silva challenged him to do this year was to push up a lot more and to contribute with goals. And if you watch his play off the ball, it was outstanding. And we needed it because I don't think Palhinha wasn't really at the races yesterday. But Harrison did a great job of covering. And anybody that's played the game will tell you that the toughest position on the field is always going to be the centre midfield. It's always, because when the defenders are in trouble, where's the midfield? If you're not creating chances, where's the midfield? And Harrison Reed has been immense this year. And that's testament to the number of players that I mentioned, who I thought were superb yesterday. There's so many great performances. But Harrison Reed was just utterly epic. And he's a little ginger Iniesta. And can I just say that, I was talking to my wife last night, and she said, 8 games to go. What's the one game you're looking forward to?
Oh, I know which one it is for me.
Oh, and I know which one it is. What's yours?
Manchester United.
Same. That's going to be you do not tune out of that one. That's going to be a doozy. You don't think that our boys are going to go out there frothing? That is going to be a badass, nasty game. This game is important because it's going to have given us a big lift. And I think, the flavor of the team is often epitomized by Harrison Reed, because this little fella runs around like a Nobby Styles,
right.
And I thought yesterday was so exemplary. I'm delighted to see he scored a goal. So, and no disrespect to the others, because to me, Palhinha apart, I don't think anybody didn't play brilliantly, but for me, Harrison gets the nod.
Okay. Before I share my man of the match and some comments, we have other Fulham supporters sharing their man of the match. I want to ask you about the resurgence of a certain player, and what do you make of it? Tosin has now come back for Diop, and I wouldn't have done this. If I was Marco Silva, I would have stuck with Diop, because I don't know how much Diop has done wrong, but he has now gone back to Tosin. Yannis, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm okay with this, because I think they've now played or close to equal number of games, and I think there's can we laugh at the fact that the one intangible has been the fact that Tim Ream's
still there.
Yep. No, I think you've got to have competition in every place, and Mark has talked about having 2 spots in every place. I think it's great. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the rumors last 48 to 72 hours are saying that more or less the deal is on that we're going to get Ola Aina back.
I saw that.
No, I think that would be brilliant, because he thought he was one of the few players that season that played really well. He was like, I was watching the Wolves game yesterday against Brentford, and Mario Lemina, like, oh, I'd love to have him back in the club. Like, he was super for us. I know there's that competition, not Tete and Cedric, but Tete and Aina would be really good competition.
Diop, I agree.
Diop and Tosin as well. That left side, well, but it's going to be interesting for next season. What can Ream give us? They're going to have to look for that left-sided centre-back. You've got to look to see if there's somebody you can bring in. There are going to be some candidates with the players have been relegated because you put them in a different system. As you found out with Ben Mee. Ben Mee at Burnley looked like the rest of them, but you put him in the Brentford lineup, and all of us, he's had a fantastic year for them. And that's just proof positive. You can take players from relegated teams who might have struggled, where if you put them in the right system with the right coach, they suddenly thrive. He's as good an example as any. We'll get someone like that. But the Diop Tosin thing is brilliant competition. That's what you want. That's a highlight of of really good teams is where you got, look at what City did yesterday. They bring Holland off at half time with Stones. Right. I know that's an extreme, but I mean that's the sort of quality you want in terms of your strength and depth. So I think it's good that Tosin and Diop are getting the fight, and then hopefully I think they'll be back next year, and that'll be good in terms of adding to our strength and depth.
Okay, I have to share this comment from Chris Goodwin. I think Marco should target Floyd Ayite as a summer signing. That would make Giannis very happy.
Yeah, but I would. Yeah, well, actually, that's interesting. But you know what? Chris is absolutely right, because I think there is a place for Floyd in this squad, and if you need two players in each position or two bodies in each position, I think he'd be the perfect backup to Billy the Badger. If Billy A isn't feeling well, then Billy B comes in. And Billy B has to be Floyd. I think he'd be brilliant.
Okay.
He wouldn't be as quick as Billy A, but he'd do the job nonetheless.
Okay, excellent. All right, I'm going to share some comments from the Fulham supporters on Man of the Match. We got Black, White, and Fred. Wilson, Man of the Match. Dan, James, and Tosin, also both great. Let's see. Chris, of course, is going with an ex-Liverpool player. Player of the match, Harry Wilson. Any ex-Liverpool player who scores against Everton gets the award from me. I understand that. Wayne Walden goes for Harry Wilson, man of the match. And I understand that. I'm actually going to go with Harry Wilson. I'm going to go with Harry Wilson. I think I was thinking about going with Dan James, but I think Harry Wilson offered even a little bit more. And I could very happy that he's back looking like the player we saw last season. And I think if he's able to play to his strengths and has someone behind him, like you mentioned, Yannis, that compliments him, Tete, lets him do what he needs to do, we might see more of this from Harry Wilson. That was the best I've seen him play in such a long period of time. It actually reminded me of his first match with Fulham, Yannis, going way back to last season. We're like, wow, we might have something here with Harry Wilson when we're in the championship. That's what it reminded me a little bit of. So I think was significant to me. That's why I'm going with Harry Wilson as man of the match. All right,
that's
great
a fair
stuff.
choice. Fair choice. He had a super game.
He did
super game, and I'm glad he stuck around. Unlike there was the Nico Williams thing. Remember the second half of last year, goes to Nottingham Forest with the 4,000 players, and not getting enough playing time.
Good luck to Nico Williams. It doesn't always work out. As we know, the grass isn't always green. I know people don't like me keep mentioning Fabio. And Chris, he ain't playing, Chris. He's not even on the bench, Chris. What's going on, Chris, as you're watching the show? Because I would take Fabio back in a heartbeat, not on loan. I would have Fulham buy him back because I don't see his future at Liverpool. They're going to look to upgrade that midfield, and he's not really a player up front. Sorry, he's a midfielder. That's where he should be. So I would definitely get him back to Fulham, and that's just my opinion. I don't think the grass is always greener. So when I think of certain players, and I love Fabio at the club, and I would love to see him back, even though I know many have moved on from him. They're like, no, basically paraphrasing, kind of dead to them. I get it, but I would take him back. That's what I would do. All right, my friend, excellent show. Final thoughts before we wrap this up.
I agree with you about Fabio. I do. I mean, he's only a kid, and if he's ill-advised, it's not necessarily his fault, although he had to make the right decision. It does make you excited about the prospects of next year. Would any Fulham fans spend 50, 60 to get Ward-Prowse in? Would you do it? There are going to be some very good players out there, and it doesn't have to be the Chelsea's spending £84 billion.
No.
It's about, players also are smart enough to go to teams where they will fit in and they can really contribute to a system that's going to work for them. And Fabio would be able to do that. And I see that Arsenal have choked again.
They did, my friend. They did. As we're doing the show, it's actually on my screen. I didn't say anything, but I'm looking at the response from the Arsenal players, and they were up 2-0. Same thing. And it ends 2-2. So I actually think Arsenal are going to win the title, but they are having some little growing pains, we'll call it, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They are. I guess you could say maybe choking a little bit. You could use
Yeah,
that
they're a
term.
year, Russ. I think they're a year away. I think
Yeah.
I think next year I think the Arsenal will win it next year. I think you look at the level of experience that they do have.
Yep.
It is good, but they've got some. As when you found out, bringing in Zinchenko and Jesus, you've got good experience. They need a couple more players because you look at the Sakas and Martinellis and the youth that they've got. They're a really fun team. I think they're just a year early. This year will be good for them. It'll be good. It'll be good. City have all the new and what have you. Arsenal have money, and they'll bring in the right players. But I don't know if you watched that first 20 minutes.
I did.
Arsenal battered them. Absolutely.
And I thought this was going to be a rout, to be honest with you, because it shows how good they can be. But there's something else going on. There's another side of this that either they take the foot off the gas or they just, I don't know. Are they just getting complacent during these matches and letting a team back in? I can't put my finger on it. But for those first 20 minutes, I'm glad that you mentioned that, they were just insanely good. And that, to me, some of the passing was just unbelievable. If you get a chance, watch the highlights, especially the beginning of this match. I'm glad Yannis brought this up because you got to marvel at this. It's some stuff that you would see from Man City, but I actually prefer watching Arsenal play because I think I don't know, there's something special about this team. You might be right. It's a 4-point difference, but there's a game in hand for Man City. We'll see how it all plays out, but Arsenal is a team that's going to be well-suited, not just for this season, but for the future. All right, my friend. Great show. Great show. As always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. For my co-host, Yannis and Yannis, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, now part of the talkSPORT Fan Network.